Hello, good evening to viewers and listeners. I'm Humadi Mark, and I would like to welcome you to the first ever Youth Dialogue, a part of the Run the Talk series, more so a part of the Value the Vote campaign of the National Youth Council. This is the start of a series of talks which will inculcate youth issues, and of course you can get involved via Facebook and the social media platforms of the National Youth Council. Here with me, a part of this, which will be an exciting discussion, I have with me, starting with Nice Alfred, who is the president of the National Youth Council and youth officer at the OECS Commission. Thank you for being here with us, Nias. Also joining us, we have Ajani Lavon, who is the second vice president of the National Youth Council with responsibility for student councils and education. And also here with us this evening, we have Director of Youth in the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, Mary Wilfred. So Mary, thank you so much for being here with us. And I have to thank you, viewing audience and listeners on Blazing Nation, for joining us today as well. Our topic is an exciting one for me, at least. I'm going to have fun with this. Our topic is the status of youth development in St. Lucia. So we're going to delve into that. But just before we do, let me say again a big thank you for being here. And we're going to start because it's Youth Month. Mm-hmm. And, part of Youth Month is the celebration of youth and youth work in St. Lucia. But this year we're doing it a little differently, given the shade that we're under when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic. So let's talk about the preparation for this month and how it was for you. Nias, I want you to take that, as well as you, Mary. Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yeah.
So let's start with you, Nias.
Yeah, definitely Youth Month over the past few years, and I definitely have to thank the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, has been a collaboration between the National Youth Council and the Ministry. And over the past, we've had several exciting activities, because we see Youth Month always as an opportunity to celebrate young people, celebrate the excellence. And the theme for this year, celebrating the excellence and resilience of youth, is quite apt, because given the COVID-19 pandemic, young people have had to endure a lot. And we see it as necessary to be able to celebrate them. Unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 protocols, we are not able to celebrate how we would normally do, but that does not mean that we are or should not celebrate young people. So we have gone almost fully virtual in terms of the engagements for Youth Month. Of course, with the Run the Talk series as part of the Value in the Vote campaign, forms an integral part of our celebrations for Youth Month. And some of the topics that will be covered will be very intriguing. And like you said, this one would be a very exciting discussion, but so will the others. The NYC also is going to be launching the I Am Woman campaign, which is also going to be something that is aimed at empowering young women across St. Lucia, and that has been led by our first vice president, Miss Anya Edwin.
You could have guessed it.
Yes, definitely, and she's been doing some amazing work on that as well. We have also intended on running a financial literacy campaign, especially within the COVID times, where it is so important that young people, even those who are unemployed, have the basic financial literacy skills to be able to cope and to be able to build lives for themselves. As well as we have the NYC documentary, a history of NYC from 1985 to now, that is going to be premiered throughout the month. And Ms. Wilfred will speak about some of the other aspects of Youth Month, but it's all about a celebration of Youth Month and celebrating the resilience of our young people and the excellence of our young people as well.
Nice. So, Ms. Wilfred, tell us from the ministry's perspective, how has preparation been?
Okay, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I want to take this opportunity to salute all our young people in St. Lucia and to wish them a happy Youth Month as we celebrate their excellence and resilience. During this COVID-19 pandemic, we have observed the resilience of young people. We have also witnessed their willingness to serve and to contribute to their communities, to institutions like our youth serving agencies. And so I want to compliment and honor every one of them, especially those who have blazed the trail, those who have led without recognition, without honor. I really want to honor them, this evening, and to encourage them to continue doing the work that they have done in order to bring about, youth development in St. Lucia. It has always been a delight to serve with the National Youth Council and to collaborate to bring about Youth Month activities. We've been in this partnership for quite a while, and I believe it is growing, it's maturing, it's improving. We learn from each other. This year, Youth Awards has always been the highlight of Youth Month, and while we're unable to host a big national ceremony, we will be having Community Youth Awards.
Oh, nice.
So in partnership with the National Youth, with the District Youth and Sports Council, along with the youth workers and other leaders in the communities, they have begun preparations to host Community Youth Awards. So Canries, Soisel, Soufre, Dennery, Grosile, Babonneau, all these councils would be meeting in discussion and preparations to honor the young people. And we're not just looking at COVID, the year 2020, like in the National Youth Awards, we look at the previous year, but they can look at perhaps 2019, 2018 even, because with the National Youth Awards, the elimination process can take away many young people who may be able to be honored at the community level. So yes, we believe that's going to be exciting, and we will have some blended, it's going to be a blended platform. We'll have some young people in-house. Thankfully, the ministry has given us the privilege and permission to have a gathering of less than 50, so we can bring in the young people, and then we can have the live from Facebook or social media platforms. Also, we want to, our ministry has the Youth Service Corps, where we have a number of volunteers in many institutions around the island. And we want to honor their service, because when you enter the Corps, you have a limited time to serve. Right. And because we started in 2019, some people have ended their service at St. Jude's, at the schools, at different places. So we have selected Youth Month to honor them and say thank you to the young people who have served, and also to the employers who have mentored and who have coached them. On the 14th of April, we want to have almost like an open house celebration at the ministry, where young people, it's kind of like a highlight point where we'd be outside the ministry and we would be talking to young people, telling them about the services we offer, telling them about the Youth Month activities, kind of having a interaction with them. So we're hoping that it's going to be really colorful and vibrant, and that they can know about the Youth Month activities, and also a little bit about NYC and other clubs that they can. It's really to encourage them to get involved. A lot of times we say our young people are unattached, but they're looking for clubs that meet their skills and, their passion. And so we hope that this could be a time to do that as well. There's a virtual youth expose, which the team is working on, because the Youth Month is led by our Program Development Officer, Mr. Nyron Talium, and I know that he is putting a lot of energy into the expose that is going to be really excellent, and that young people will love it. So we continue to have our discussions and ways to improve, lessons that we learned over the years. And so now, with the adjustment of virtual programming, we think we'll be able to reach more young people than we would have done in the past.
In the past, yes. I know that the youth expose is usually a highlight of Youth Month, so
Yes.
it will be very exciting to see that come to fruition. And of course, if you would like to view the calendar of activities or events for Youth Month, there's always the platforms of the National Youth Council and the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports. Now, Ajani, you're here with us, and I know that you are taking the lead with the Value the Vote campaign, of course, with support of your very capable colleagues at the NYC. And so let's delve into a little bit into that. Tell us a little bit about the campaign and, the purpose for the campaign, because I know that some of the pillars inculcate education, training. You're also looking at inclusion and democracy, and more importantly, awareness. So let's talk a little bit about the campaign.
All right, thank you very much, Homer, and a pleasant evening to all the viewers. The Value in the Vote campaign really was born out of the group which decided to vie for the NYC elections, and we recognized that there was need to increase the participation of young people within our democracy. We know that St. Lucia, as a 42-year-old independent state, does not, to some extent, have a picture of young people who are meaningfully integrated and mainstreamed within youth development. So we recognize that there's need for young people to be placed within a society or to understand the role that they play within the broader society. So the Value in the Vote campaign seeks to do just that in providing young people with the platform to which they could sort of express not just their own opinions as to how the country should be developed, but also to understand how the roles of key institutions like the National Youth Council, clubs and organizations, and other civil society organizations play a role in the development of society. So we've more or less looked at a series of engagements. So this Run the Talk series is an inclusion of the youth dialogues, the information sessions that we will be hosting via Blazing 99.3's platform. We've also completed a series of focus groups with more or less underrepresented, we sort of call them marginalized as well, but organizations that are not necessarily part of the national discussion. We've completed a series of those discussions inclusive of United and Strong St. Lucia, the National Council of for Persons with Disabilities, the Boys Training Center, and the New Beginnings Transit Home for Girls. So we've completed that. We'll be moving into another sort of phase to which we're hoping to engage political candidates, but we'll make an announcement on that pretty soon. And the general goal out of those discussions is to pull in the feedback, pull in the contributions of our young people to develop more or less an outcome document or outcome statement that gives policymakers an idea as to where young people are at this present time and where young people see the country headed in the next 5 to 10 years. So we consider this campaign as a start to a lengthened process of meaningful integration of young people in the development of our country.
Nice. So that kind of sheds some light as to how, this plays a really important role. And when I say this, I mean the youth dialogues, because it gets young people actually talking and thinking about the issues. And maybe if they do not yet have an opinion, it allows them to start to think about what my stance is and what my opinion is. So that is really cool. And of course, we have to say kudos to the NYC and the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports for their continued work with youth development in St. Lucia. So let's start with the topic, the status of youth development in St. Lucia. And I'm going to put it to you from your perspective. What is the status of youth development in St. Lucia? What is our current state? And in terms of future developments, where do we want to see ourselves?
Okay, that sort of reminds me of when we look at the State of the Union in the US, and they tell you, what is the State of the Union? So the state of youth development for me in St. Lucia is definitely improving. I cannot say that we are where we want to be because we still have so much work to do. But when you look at where we are at presently and where we were probably about 10 years ago, there has been significant, consistent improvement. But there is a lot more that can be done. And in my opinion, I believe that we need to get to a point in youth development in St. Lucia where youth development is people-centered. It is youth-centered. And everything that we do has to come out of the input and the values and the contributions of our young people. And I think that is why a campaign like the Value in the Vote campaign is so important, because it allows for young people to be able to contribute directly to what they want to see. And definitely, I think that that is, moving forward, is the most critical aspect, that we make it people-centered, we make it youth-centered. And I think after that, then everything would begin to fall into play. And I know the ministry has been pushing big on the professionalization of youth work, because this is one of the reasons why young people tend to stay away from youth development, because as we can all understand and appreciate, most of them have careers, most of them have other things that they're into. And any sort of youth development work that they do is normally almost 100% voluntary. So it takes a lot from them to be able to do what they need to do for life. Some of them are unemployed, some of them have other responsibilities, and to be able to contribute meaningfully in a volunteer capacity. So I think further down the line, there definitely needs to be a conversation about the improved professionalization of youth work. I know Ms. Wilfred will probably speak to the youth workers, which they've been doing a fantastic job with. So definitely I think that moving forward, these are some of the things that we need to do to ensure that young people feel like they are part of the conversation, and that they feel that they are involved and that they are welcomed in the space of youth development.
Nice. So what about you, Ms. Wilfred?
Okay, so I want to agree with Nayas that we've seen significant improvements in youth work in St. Lucia, and as I was discussing with my colleagues at the office, you know, youth work in the 70s was really powered by faith-based organizations. You had the Brownies, you had the Girl Guides, you had the Scouts, you had the Rangers, you had the Catholic youth organizations, and then you had clubs like Spartans and VBCC and perhaps a VSADC. And then we can't find those clubs anymore. We can't find the Brownies and the Guides, and we believe that we had not we've not done enough to preserve the gains of these organizations so they now can become very integral in youth development. And so we've learned those lessons, and I believe one of the significant things that has happened is the giving youth work its institution, the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports. And of course we've grown, because in the 80s we probably just had one community development officer, then we had other youth and sports officers, and you know, looking after youth work. But it was inadequate. It was not enough to meet the challenges and the needs of young people. And coming out of that, the Commonwealth was encouraging its member countries to have policies. That is why in 1999, the first attempt at a youth policy, we had a first attempt of a national youth policy. It was passed in Parliament in about 2003, thereabout. And so they believe that would give youth work the kind of policy attention needed to deal with what was urgent and what mattered to young people. And we know the issues of policy. Sometimes, you know, it's nice, it's bright, it looks well, we talk about it, and then of course it goes on aside. But of course we continue to be persistent in youth development. In 2016 we did a revision, we got a new policy, and now we put in an action plan together so that it can drive some of the programs that young people discussed that were important to them, like education and you know, citizen security and health and these kinds of things. Also significant is in 2017, Youth and Sports had the split. Before you had a Youth and Sports Director, and now the goal was to have youth have their separate budget so they can know measure the outcomes of what they're doing, and sports having a separate budget. And that gave us the liberty to now look at youth work through different lenses. That if we now have a youth section of the ministry, how do we engage young people to become problem solvers in the community? And here came the youth workers. They are young people living in the community, and we see them as our you know, as our foot soldiers that would, you know, help to bring about the changes we want in revitalizing clubs and ensuring that young people connect to resources, connect to opportunities, connect to referrals, that they would connect to projects. So we believe that we have made some significant strides. We have about 22 of them. We still have some communities that we want to cover, but we think that this is a giant leap from where we came from.
Nice.
So with regards to that, yes.
Just to hold that thought, of course, you are tuned into Youth Dialogue, watching on the Government Information's NTN as well as Blazing Nation. We'll take a quick break. When we return, Mary, of course, you're going to tell us a little more about that. And Ajani, we're still yet to hear your views on the status of youth development in St. Lucia. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Do you know we can limit the spread of the COVID-19 virus? The Ministry of Health is your partner in achieving this solution. Introducing the Amber Wristwatch. The Amber Wristwatch is designed for monitoring daily movements while in quarantine. It provides an accurate location and a precise heart rate. The device is also waterproof and can be worn during all daily functions, like washing the dishes or taking a shower. It's worn like a typical timepiece. The Ministry of Health can now better monitor people in home quarantine and receive alerts of those who do not stay in the confines of their home. A 14-day rental of the Amber Wristwatch is just $75 US. Let us stop the breaches of home quarantine.
Thank you for staying with us, and those of you just joining us, welcome to Youth Dialogues, a part of the Run the Talk series. Today we are discussing the status of youth development in St. Lucia, and here with us we have Mary Wilfred, who is Youth Director in the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, Ajani Lebon, Second Vice President of the National Youth Council, responsible for student councils and education, and the President of the National Youth Council, Nias Alfred, who's also a youth officer at the OECS Commission. So we have been talking about the status of youth development in St. Lucia, and we were getting your views. What do you believe is the status of youth development in St. Lucia in terms of where we are now and where we want to see ourselves in the future? Mary, you were talking to us about, the youth officers and their work within the communities. And I think that, it's great to have young people incorporated in that aspect, because you're also grooming them to become future leaders.
Yes. The NYC has often reminded us nothing for us without us. and so we believe that, that is the premise by which these young people are engaging their communities, so that they can understand, the context of youth development. And each community is unique, very different, and so they have to look into that context and to see how they can work with the groups, the clubs, the schools, the churches, the boys on the block to engage them in such a way that the community advances for the good of everybody living there.
And you can see each community also developing their own vibe when it comes to youth development with the youth workers, which is really nice as well. Ajani, what about you? What is your thought when it comes to youth development in St. Lucia, the current state, and where you see us going, or where we should go?
All right, very, very pointed question. I think, well, if you look at the progression of youth development post-independence, it's evident that young St. Lucians found it fitting to be organized. So that would have led to the development of the club structure at the grassroots level. That would have led into the membership of the National Youth Council and the formation of the National Youth Council. And that's where we have our strength. So it shows that St. Lucia has that sort of competitive advantage in terms of young people understanding the role of their voice within the development of our country. We're at a stage now that I think over the years we've seen a shift in the dynamics of youth development, when you would have seen many young people being very driven to those organizations, wanting to be part of the structures. But now I think youth development or youth engagement has shifted more along the lines of young creatives and young people taking an independent stance in terms of how they're representing themselves and their communities. So now you find more of our young people are driven to following the Instagram lives and tuning into some of those informal discussions. Twitter chats and Twitter discussions are now a big thing because youth are seeing themselves engaged in a more informal, or I would say ad hoc situation. So I think now it means that the status of youth development requires structured youth organizations like the National Youth Council and of course the policy lead, the ministry, to look at a more strategic policy position on how we engage young people. Of course, we've discussed the mainstreaming of youth development, which means critically finding places to which you have young people in policy design and implementation. Positive youth development, recognizing that at every stage you have youth who are not only informing the development of programs, but can provide feedback on the effectiveness of programs, which is very critical. And at this present time, I think it's also important that we find young people within the spaces that they're at. And Miss Wilfred spoke to that as it pertains to young people. Yes, they're not generally at a stage where they may be of the young people back in the 70s who would have been easily mobilized in a physical setting, but via the social media and via some of the upcoming platforms to which youth feel comfortable engaging, we now have to make inroads there. So it would mean working through the channels that they use. The NYC will try to pull in many young influencers in our programming. And of course, that means that moving forward, the structure and the messaging needs to be a bit more, less bureaucratic, less structured, and more informal to be able to point young people within the spaces that they're most comfortable.
Now that is a whole new, discussion that you are, or a subsidiary of this discussion that you're opening. A lot of discussion. There's been a lot of discussion about the structure of NYC and using, organizations to reach youth, and whether or not that should be changed. Should we start looking at reaching youth who are quote unquote unattached? And I know some people do not like that term, so not me that says. I'm just using it for the sake of this discussion. So when it comes to that, looking at the current structure of the National Youth Council, and of course the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, reaching youth through community organizations. Where are we with that? And we know that there is an importance to doing that, to having the clubs and the club structure, because it helps with leadership, it helps with dynamics and young people getting involved. But in terms of broadening it and reaching young people who may not necessarily be a part of that structure, where are we?
You want to go first?
Mary, you can go first.
Okay. Okay. I think we expected magically for our community organizations to blossom into the future. We felt that things were so good that it would always remain like that, that our clubs would, continue to rank first, and, life would just remain as nice as it was.
We didn't see TikTok coming up.
No, we did not even see, the information age revolutionizing youth work. But not only that, we didn't pay attention to succession planning. We didn't pay attention to, leadership and training. We didn't pay attention to club governance. We just felt that the way it was done, it would have been done. And I think we missed out on that. So we are now struggling to have our clubs to be really an agent of change in the community, which was what clubs were. You know, when you went to a club, you taught discipline, you hiked, you had to be punctual, you had to go home, tell your mother what you did at the retreat. It really provided a means of helping young people to grow and to help them to understand the values of life and the meaning of community. And this is no more. Many clubs have become dormant, many clubs have become dysfunctional, and I'm sure the NYC have their own stories on the ground when they're doing their mobilization and what their councils are telling them with regards to the club being part of their own structure. So I believe this is an area that we need a lot of work, and we have to do it quickly, because if not, the virtual space is just going to cover us, and we may not have the opportunity to do it. So I believe we took the clubs for granted, and we did not provide that enabling environment to facilitate their growth, their development, to make sure that they probably emerge, to make sure that they got the right skill set, to make sure that, you know, things remained sustainable, even though Homer would have left a youth group, that it is still there. It's still there running along, and somebody else leaves and it is still there. We just felt Homer will be there all the time. She will be the backbone of the club, and then when Homer leaves, that's it, no club. So this is where we are, and I believe that with conversations I've had with Ajani and the NYC, we really need to look at the clubs, the clubs in our communities. Do we bring them back? Do we have something else to replace them? We have to have a very solid conversation on club development in St. Lucia.
True. Now, Nayas and Ajani, maybe you could help with that. What do you think can be done, you know, to remedy the situation? Because we know what it is. And I think at this point it's thinking of what can we do? So just to pick your brain a little bit, you could get a little creative with this one. What do you think can be done? And just before you answer that, let me just make an appeal to our viewers on Facebook. Remember that you could also chime in. You can join the conversation. You could just, you know, drop a comment, let us know what you think as it relates to the status of youth development in St. Lucia. And if you do have questions for our panel, you could also participate as well. So in terms of solutions, I give you a little time to think. You also what I did there. Let us know. What do you think?
I think for us to progress in youth development, we really need to be honest and accept the fact that our current structure as it relates to youth development in St. Lucia, it's not working. And young people are no longer attracted like they used to be to our community organizations, our youth groups, and even more structured organizations like the NYC. Young people don't see the pull, they don't see the importance, they don't see the value of it to their lives. And that is definitely something that is of great concern and that we need to work on. I've always, for me, seen the importance of youth organizations in the community groups. They do serve a purpose, and then you did mention quite well that in terms of leadership, this is where young people learn a lot of the traits of leadership within the community. And I think that if we're able to take a more dynamic approach, probably similar to the YMCAs in some of the developed countries, where parents and other members in the community play a critical role in enabling young people, where you have organizations in St. Lucia, youth organizations, when they have programs and they have no sort of support, where they have whether it be a club activity, a youth activity, and there is absolutely no support for them on the ground. If we start getting parents, we start getting teachers and other members in the community involved in these processes, then we're able to see young people basically realizing that their efforts are being appreciated. And I think that that sort of community approach, bringing back the involvement of the police into these activities will definitely work. And we mentioned prior about getting young people where they are. And I was actually having a conversation with Ajani earlier about the whole notion that because we're in the virtual age, that it would be a lot easier for us to reach young people that we otherwise would not have reached. And I have an alternate view on that. And my view on that is that even if the virtual space is available for those young people who are not part of these organizations, when you invite them, or when you put out this program, you put out these invitations, you will still get only the young people who are involved. Because while the virtual platform is available, they don't see the need to become part of that space. And we have seen that. We have had many virtual meetings, and we see the same people. So it really has to be in, we have to create an environment where they get the information. What is in it for me? Why do I need to join this? Why do I need to become part of this movement? How do I benefit? And I think if we're able to do that, then we'll be able to pull out a lot of the interests of young people. We cannot go into an inner city community and tell them to tune into a Zoom platform for a workshop. It's similar to sitting down in the physical workshop where we're saying that it's a bit too bureaucratic, it's a bit too formal. The Zoom meetings are pretty much the same, just on a different platform. So we really need to be creative in the way that we reach out to them. It's unfortunate that COVID has not allowed us that physical contact where we can actually go into the communities to speak to them one-on-one, because I think that that personal interaction is very important. But I think through collaboration between the agencies like the NYC and the ministry, we have to become a lot more creative and not just innovative like we've been trying to see over the past year.
All right. Now, just listening to you, Nias, I have a question. In terms of reaching youth, we know that is one of the things that the NYC is responsible for, the Ministry of Youth Development. My question is, though, when we are talking about reaching youth and using the virtual space, who are we trying to reach? Is the goal to reach all youth? Is that what we're trying to do? Or are we trying to focus on young people who are interested or has, minds with the mandate of the organization? What is the purpose of when we say we're reaching youth?
Reaching youth has to be to reach all youth, because as an organization, we cater to the needs of every single young person. And for that, it has to be a bottom-up approach where we listen to the young people, we listen to what they want, and then our programming and our activities reflect what they want. It cannot be a top-down approach where we decide the programming and then we expect them to basically fit into the fold.
Okay.
That will not work. So when you're speaking about reaching young people, it's reaching every single young person, no matter your interest, no matter what organization that you're part of, no matter what school that you go to, no matter what community that you live in. It has to be a continuous bottom-up approach in terms of our engagement of these young people. It's unfortunate that we're not reaching them at the levels that we should, but that's, we're doing it because we love to do it, and it is something that we will continue to work on.
All right, Mary, what are your thoughts?
Yes, the goal is to reach young people. The target is young people, but remember, you have different vehicles, you have different conduits that would reach them, and you also have interest groups as well. So, for example, you have Histoire or Empowering Women. So they have this reach. You probably have a sports club with another reach. You also have a young leaders, another reach. But nonetheless, you're reaching young people. So the goal is to reach all of them. Mm-hmm. You can't, you can't put yourself out there and to say, I'm just reaching this one. It's really to reach everyone, and you would engage as many modes of delivery to do that. Your community youth organization, your NYC, your church, your schools, you understand? You use all of these. And I think one of the things, Nias, I want to highlight is that we've not harmonized the work of youth development in St. Lucia. We still do. NYC and the Ministry of Youth, we have a very close partnership. Okay? We collaborate on a lot of things. They pick our brains, we pick their brains, we know what they're up to, they know some of the things that we are doing, and they would often sometimes commend what we do, or they would tell us, we know, Ms. Wilfred, I think this should be done that way, and what have you. But I believe in our youth development on our journey, we've not stopped to bring in more collaborators, like our junior achievement. It's a youth group. There are lots of groups in schools, environmental clubs, little clubs in the school. That is where the genesis of this whole youth development is coming from. And if we don't tap into it early, we lose those early leaders. You understand? Mm-hmm. There are children who are mayors in their class. They're only 8 and 9, mm-hmm. and they're vying for mayorship. And they see themselves as leaders already. So we need to tap into that early leadership, and it can sort of morph into that young leader, and also that adult, that productive adult that we want to become a citizen who is engaged and who is contributing meaningfully to lives in our communities.
Agreed. Very well said, Mary. You are locked onto the National Television Network, also viewing on social media and listening on Blazing 99.3. This is the Youth Dialogues, a part of the Runda Talk series. I'm your moderator, Humadi Mark, and when we return, we are going to take a deep dive into youth issues and prioritizing youth issues. Ensure that you stay with us.
Oi, you realize you step on my toe.
Well, do something about it.
Gas I bust in that man.
Hold on. If somebody try to cross you, and the matting start to take you, no need for war or violence, cause the police there to help you. If a trouble start in the session, alright, no need for aggression. We don't want no violence in the place. Control your temper, respect each other. Don't let no trouble escalate, cause you know better. Control your temper, respect each other. Don't let no trouble escalate, cause you know better. Control your temper. A message from Mission Boys, Studio 758, Acid Creations, and the Royal St. Lucia Police Force.
Welcome back. This is Youth Dialogues, a part of the Run the Talk series, more so a part of the Value the Vote campaign. We are in the midst of Youth Month. And if you are just joining us, our panelists today, Mary Wilfred, who is the Youth Director in the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports. We have Ajani Labon, who is the Second Vice President of the National Youth Council with responsibility for student councils. And Nice Alfred is here with us as well, President of the National Youth Council and Youth Officer at the OECS Commission. We've had a very interesting discussion so far, and right now I want to delve into a topic that might differ with the three of you when it comes to your opinions, but it's youth issues. Let's talk about what we think the youth issues are and those more so that should be prioritized. And just for the interest of time, because I know that we could go on when it comes to youth issues and which one should be prioritized. Your top three. Let's start with you, Ajani.
All right. I think a major, if I were to prioritize, I would say the standard of living of young people, understanding or recognizing that many young people do not have equal opportunities to thrive within our society. There is that widening disparity between the upper and the lower class of young people. The lower class tend to remain within the lower class because the education system has failed to provide them with the level of empowerment required. So you have that gap in the education system where if you're academic, you progress within that system that favors academics. If you're more technically oriented, the system, if you look at the connection between the education system and the workforce, there's that gap because you don't have the skilling being done within the school system that allows for a technically oriented student or differentiated learner to be able to progress within society. That sort of pours into the issue of young people being marginalized, particularly in at-risk communities. The social ills, particularly regarding crime and violence, we see as a prevalent issue where there is the challenge in effective rehabilitation and reintegration of young people within society, particularly young offenders, young people who would have been in conflict with the law. So that also is one of the issues that we've recognized, and it's very unfortunate over the last few months and weeks. We've seen most of the crime being perpetrated, involving young people. So we have to ask the question, is it just that young people are magically or based on circumstance part of those systems, or is it because with I spoke to a policy strategy, with the strategy that is missing in terms of finding ways within the school system to educate young people on St. Lucian history, educate young people on the integration of Creole language into schools. Those things give young people a feeling and identity as a St. Lucian, and that identity is important because they understand the role that they play, the long-term role that they play in the development of society. So crime and violence, another difficult issue to deal with because we know the implications and the vulnerabilities that young people face, particularly if there's not a system that facilitates upward mobility. And then the third issue, I think, has to do with the health situation, the issue of alcoholism among young people. And I had a discussion with a colleague of mine of the silent epidemic, such as the COPD epidemic, with many of the young males falling victim to that. We also have other fringe issues such as, reckless driving, many young people falling prey to that. So these are some of the main issues. Like you said, we could go on and on, but I think for the most part, it is rooted in the education system that should build that national pride in young people.
So you're saying that the education system is essentially the start for the remedy of these issues?
Yes.
Okay. Nias, what are your top three?
Well said, Ajani. I mean, Ajani covered pretty comprehensively a lot of what we're thinking, I'm sure. So I'm going to mention a couple that he did not mention. And I mean, it may be cliched, but one of the main issues that we face, and it is a root cause of a lot of what young people go through, is unemployment. And I'm not just speaking to the obvious fact that young people are disproportionately part of the unemployment section of our population, but I think it also speaks to the fact that we need to be a bit more creative in ways in which we create unemployment for our young people. COVID has taught us a lesson, and we need to listen to that lesson, where we need to continuously retool our population to be able to meet the demands of an ever-changing world. Right now, it is no longer enough to say that our young people would leave community college and go into a bank, go into a business to get an internship. A lot of our jobs are moving online, moving tech, whether it be high tech or low tech. We need to be able to train and to retool our young people, even those who are already part of the structure. Because whereas previously you would have had a bank that would have wanted to hire 5 tellers, 10 tellers, right now there is no need to hire so many tellers. There is no need for a company to have so many staff physically. These jobs have moved online. So whether it be the young people who are already employed in terms of creating that level of security for the jobs that they have, teaching them, retooling them, and we need to be able to teach our young people to take advantage of the opportunities that exist in the digital world. And I think in terms of employment, that is a big step that we can take in order to ensure that that unemployment rate continues and continues to go down. Another one I would say is that there is a lack of proper space and facilities for young people to develop their creative prowess. There is lack of space where young people want to innovate, where they want to be creative, where they want to be participating in art and culture. There is no really structured and dedicated space in St. Lucia to be able to do that. And I always find that it is something that is baffling that as a country, the largest in the OECS, that St. Lucia does not have a dedicated youth space, a youth center. And that is something that the NYC has advocated for in the past. And I'm actually glad that this is part of the Value in the Vote campaign, because I really want to see that coming out of these discussions, that every single politician, every single party has on the agenda a youth center for St. Lucia, a center that will be able to create incubator space, where when young people have ideas on entrepreneurship ideas, where they could come and they could find the resources in-house and be able to set up to develop the business, where young creatives could find space where they could rehearse, where the NYC, the Youth Development Clubs, the Ministry of Youth Development can find a space, a home for youth development in St. Lucia. And I think that is something that should be top of the priority for the upcoming general election. And I think that if young people have that space where they know they could come, where they have issues, and we see that a lot with the NYC office, where young people see it as a hub, as a safe space where they could come and they could basically engage, they could interact, whether it is they need to do SBAs, meet with their peers. I think that something like that is extremely important. And I mean, why stop at, if you have a center, the main youth center, it cannot be just in Castries. There has to be outlets in the various communities, something that would serve a similar purpose. And that is something that I'm really looking to see accomplished for the next year, couple of years, in fact.
Now, that is a really good point that you're making, and it has me thinking. We've been talking a lot about, the virtual space, and given in light of the COVID-19 situation, do you think that it's possible to create a safe virtual space, kind of like a center for young people online?
It has to be blended. And I will continue to advocate for the physical space, because like I said, there is so much virtual that we can actually do. And some people, you will just not reach them in the virtual space. But then there definitely can be that hub where young people can get access to a lot of these resources. So the youth center doesn't have to be youth center physically. It can also be virtually as well. And you know of programs and organizations, for example, Boost, and what they're doing to basically help develop entrepreneurs. This is a virtual space. So there is space for young people to be engaged virtually, but in terms of that physical space, because I mean, if you're into dancing or you're into acting or modeling, this is not something that you can really do in a virtual space.
True.
So you would need the physical setting as well. So let's go with blended.
I'll take that. Mary, in terms of, from your perspective, in terms of youth issues that need addressing, top 3.
Okay.
She sighs.
Yes. I think I'll take it from another perspective. I think the first one is insufficient access to opportunities. Based on my experience with the Youth Service Corps, when young people come in and present themselves, they come in at the other end, Ajani, meaning they've struggled to complete secondary school, they've got their CXCs, they've gone to Sir Arthur, they've succeeded with their associate degree, and then they're stuck. They don't know what next, what to do, apart from writing an application to get a job and what have you. So we've not created any sort of mechanism where the young people can get the information that they need in terms of scholarships, in terms of volunteering, in terms of, internship. It's like I leave school, I have done my best, and now I'm at a point in a country where I don't know what to do. Okay, my mom is telling me, get to work, get out of the house, we fed you enough, go look for something. But I really don't know what to do. And so I believe that is one of the issues that we have to resolve. As a ministry, as policy makers, we need to get that mechanism in place so young people can know what to do. And that's why we developed the Youth Service Corps. It actually came from them telling us, Miss, we're home with all those subjects, we're not doing anything. Why can't we go out there and volunteer? So that is one of the issues. And you can see, if people know what's going on, they would circulate. I send it to Nias, I send it to Ajani, I send it to my friend. It stays in that circle. But how do other people know? So I think it's the access to opportunities. They're there, but we're not providing the mechanism for them to tap into it. I think the other one is the ability to kind of coach and mentor young people as they navigate through that period of turbulence. Yeah? Homer, you just told me you gave some trouble in school. Now look at
I was joking.
Look at me.
I was joking.
No, I'm joking. But there are students like you who probably have had a little turbulence, in especially that Form 3. As a former teacher, I know that Form 3 period in Form 3, it's like students are trying to find themselves. And they just need somebody to, sort of guide them and affirm them and say, listen, this is what you can do. And this is, you're good at that. Why don't you try that? Why don't you? And they don't get that. So they've been seen as deviant, they're suspended, they're expelled. And sometimes they just need somebody to guide them. So I think that's one of the issues confronting young people. Not everybody has this, functional home where you have a tough single mother that can guide you. Sometimes the single mother is under a lot of pressure with 5, 6, 7 children. She wants to do well, but boy, she has to get up at 5 to go to the hotel, get work done, feed you. And so sometimes they just, and I think that is a missing dimension in our society. I honestly believe we have a lot of, intelligent inventors, innovators, scientists out there that missed the opportunity because nobody was really there to just hold their hands and say, you can do it. Hang in there, buddy. Hang in there. Hang in there. You'll get through that rough period. So I think that's my second issue. And I believe the third issue is that we do not we view our young people as in deficit terms. Yeah, we view them, the crime, violence, that kind of a way, rather than young people who can build St. Lucia, young people who can add their imagination and the energy and the innovation and the skills, into what we want to see our country become. And Nance was right, all these creative abilities, all these, creative young people, how do we facilitate them and add them to the building blocks of our nation. So all of us could, look back and applaud one another for the work that is being done to make our country number one.
Right, so we've talked about quite a few issues here, and so while we're still on the topic, one of the things that you said, Mary, triggered me, is that young people get to a certain point in life. They get through school, and then they say, "What now?" Now, I remember my "what now" moment.
Thank you for being honest.
Until a day like today, there are situations where I go, but why didn't I learn that in school? There are things that I feel like, I went through years and years and years in school, and it still did not prepare me for life. One of the things I remember is going to SAFA, going from Cashier's Comprehensive Secondary School, and being dropped in the SAFA environment where you are left to your own devices. So I went from being on a lunch table and a teacher telling me, "Huma, why are you not in class?" to being at SAFA, and my lecturer could care less. My lecturer doesn't know what class I'm supposed to be in.
Anyways.
So Huma is sitting down, and she decides she doesn't want to go to class today because she can do that. But I was not taught, yeah, y'all told me it would have repercussions, but I didn't understand that until it happened.
Okay.
Yeah? So, and I know that there are a lot of young people who, not just the SAFA experience, but they now have a job and they don't know how to pay taxes. They don't know the first thing about that. So, what are your thoughts in terms of some of these issues being addressed on the education, level, on the school perspective? So the health and family life classes where they tell us, oh, we should abstain and we should say no. Why are we not being taught how to handle the real issues? Well, yeah, they're serious. Don't get me wrong. But, these things that everybody have to go through, like everybody will have to learn to do taxes at one point in their life, or should rather. So what are your thoughts on these issues, life skills, being more integrated on the school level?
Yeah, I would say that it perhaps means adding another extension to our curriculum. So you have the formal curriculum, perhaps looking at an informal curriculum that, although we're aware that many schools do have extracurricular activities, but then for many students who may not necessarily be academically inclined, that is a perfect opportunity to gain additional credits by being able to implement or include, training in, like you would have mentioned, life skills or digital literacy skills, or skills in collaboration and critical thinking that can be done within the school setting. So yes, there are the clubs, but through practical exercises, through perhaps creating a grading system where a student's involvement in community activities adds to their end of term grade. And employability is also a big part of it. So it's also a space to which we could then begin to include all of those other elements, such as the how-tos, how to apply for a job, how to file taxes, how to open a bank account, and those things. So perhaps we would need to add a further arm to the education system in doing that, but we certainly would have to find a way to do it in a way in which it supplements what the students are already learning in school.
That makes sense. This is, again, Youth Dialogues, a part of the Run the Talk series. This is the first of 4 dialogues that will be brought to you by the National Youth Council. And I think I could say that it's been a very exciting start to, to the talks. It's a part of the Value the Vote campaign brought to you by the National Youth Council. And if you are viewing, if you're listening, more so if you are on social media, you can be a part of the discourse. You can be a part of the discussion. Remember, you could just drop a comment on the Facebook page. Let us know what you are thinking. If you have a question for our panel, you could also put it there as well. Of course, you need to stay with us, viewing on the National Television Network, listening on Blazing 99.3. Stay with us.
Did you know that Dame Paulette Louise had the distinction of being St. Lucia's first and only female Governor General? sworn in on the 17th of September 1997. And she's also St. Lucia's longest serving Governor General. She broke a glass ceiling, and honestly, so can we. So let's be inspired by her strength and determination.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. We are talking about the state of youth development on St. Lucia, and we are looking beyond as well. So it's about problems and solutions today. Mary Wilfred is here with us from the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports. She is the youth director. Nice Alfred, who is the president of the National Youth Council and youth officer at the OACS Commission. Ajani Labon is here with us as well, second vice president of the National Youth Council, with responsibility for Students' Council. And we've had, a very serious discussion about youth issues, about where we are in terms of youth development in St. Lucia and what we could do to reach, more young people. The virtual space versus hands-on physical reaching young people and ensuring that we help them in that regard. And we know COVID-19 is one of the things that everybody's facing on all levels, in all sectors. COVID-19 has been an issue for the past year and a half or so. And more so, I believe young people may be, or not maybe, definitely are affected by it and are struggling with it. So in terms of giving advice to a young person who is facing issues within that COVID-19 arena, I'm unemployed due to COVID-19. I have anxiety and I don't know how to cope with, these situations. What advice do we have for these young people?
For me, I would definitely say to young people that as much as it may be difficult to see the positivity in a situation like COVID-19, because like I said earlier, young people have been disproportionately affected by a lot of what is going on. If you look at the mass unemployment in the hotel industry, a lot of the people who are part of the hotel industry are indeed young people. So young people have been affected more than most. So I would say to young people that they need to find the positivity in every single situation. I know that is very tough, but it is something that definitely helps. And it helps to be proactive as well. So if you realize that you applied for a job, and I would always give the example of when I first started to work as a banker at Bank of St. Lucia. I had sent in my applications several times without any response. And one day I saw an application for the human resource manager at Bank of St. Lucia. Of course, I had just left school. I was about 17, 18, and I have absolutely no qualifications for the human resource manager at Bank of St. Lucia. But I decided to apply. And in my footnote, I included that I had been applying on several occasions for a job, but then I had not received a response. So I decided to apply for the job of human resource manager. And 2 days later, I got an interview, and I started working at Bank of St. Lucia about 3 days later.
Not as a human resource manager.
As a teller. As a teller. Because that's what my experience and qualifications lend to. So young people need to be proactive. If you realize that there is something that you need to do, you need to be able to put it together well enough to tell the prospective employer that I am here and I'm ready to work, and these are some of the skills that I bring to the table. If it is that the normal application does not work, do it in the form of a video that may be a bit more palatable for them and a little bit less, how should I say it, less, they would not require as much time to go through it. But you need to use whatever skill that you have to bring across to your prospective employers to ensure that they see you and they see the uniqueness in what you bring to the table. Everybody is looking for a job these days. Our CVs are always the same. Right now, it seems that a bachelor's degree will be the minimum for a lot of jobs in St. Lucia. So we need to be able to tap into that creative sides of us to be able to market ourselves. And I think that is where, as the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, as the NYC, we really need to do a much better job at helping young people tap into these creative psyches and to be able to market themselves in that way.
Okay, for the ministry, we have responded to the COVID-19 in the provision of psychosocial support for a virtual counselor. So if you're a young person and you need that kind of support, you can visit our ministry. You can call us at 468-5401. or 468-5463, or you can speak to a youth worker in the community, and these individuals would be able to connect you with a virtual counselor. We think that sometimes our young people need to, you know, speak to the professionals because of the, you know, the suddenness of everything concerning the COVID-19. Some young people are still catching up and saying, is it all a dream? You know, and so much has happened. So we can provide that service. And, you know, sometimes when you dig deeper, young people have recognized that during the COVID-19, you know, 1 or 2 more classes of NSDC and I did not finish it. So I don't have the certificate in auto mechanics, so I don't have the certificate in bread making, you know, or there was a free course that they did and they couldn't be bothered, whether it was at NELU. But now in the COVID-19, because employment, you know, has dropped so drastically, and you know, they're now looking for that certificate, that course that they did not finish. So part of our work is to encourage them, either you complete and we can support you, or if there are other opportunities that you are pursuing, let us see what can be done. Because some of the courses are free, some of the courses, you know, it's a minimum, like NELU and those places. So that's a response to say, what have you done? What are you doing? What did you miss? Perhaps this is an opportunity to complete what you missed, since, you know, there's no work and you probably have the time to do it online. And another one is to serve. Use your skills and serve other people, you know, use your IT. There's the Google Classroom, students are online all the time. Serve, help your neighbor, help the people in your community. If you're an IT student and you can help with that Google Classroom and get students up on par with that digital mode of learning, do that. Don't sit and pine. You know, get involved and give back. And I believe as that happens, there's a sense of pride and a sense of contribution to an improvement in the lives of young people. And of course, Nayas has said it all. Continue to get equipped, continue to get retooled, reskilled. You have to now up your game so that you'll be able to meet the opportunities that will come, that are coming within this pandemic time.
Very well said. Just a thought, and maybe Ajani, you could take this one. Mary, you spoke to you know, people being you know, oriented in various areas, and also you also spoke about, you know, young people having you know, to take opportunities. One of the things that I've found is that sometimes young people may be afraid to take a job at NSDC or complete that job because we've had a stereotype as to jobs that are prestigious and jobs that may not be as prestigious. You have parents telling a child not to follow their passion because, you know, that job doesn't bring you money in St. Lucia. What can we do to change that thought? What can we do to improve that perception when it comes to, you know, taking certain jobs in various industries? Few minutes to go to our next break, so you have 2 minutes. You're on the clock.
For the most part, I think it's perhaps mean a deliberate effort to rebrand these institutions. So, National Skills Development Center, what about rebranding into, you know, Young Professionals Academy, or something that can, for a young person, look like something that they want to place on their CV, or something that, you know, the same way someone is proud to say that they have a bachelor's degree or a doctorate in front of their name, you know, it may mean that you add some level of recognition to that, to which they could include that into their general selling point or their general position in terms of pitching themselves at an interview. But I also want to take a different twist in saying that society has set those standards of competitiveness that we sort of have to reculture our people to look differently. In this time, young people take it easy. Like, you know, like there's nothing at this present time that is saying you need to be at a certain point. that, to be satisfied. You're in an environment where we're generally disadvantaged. I think for a young person, it means finding time to invest in your mental and emotional well-being. Ms. Wilfred would have spoken about it very nicely in terms of taking time to tap into psychosocial resources, finding a daily schedule that makes you comfortable. What time you wake up in the morning, how do you spend your mornings, what do you do during the day to add value to yourself and others. So I think it's more on the softer side, mental and physical well-being, and ensuring that you as an individual are ready inside before you go outside to deal with others.
Nice, that's a great way to put it, and I would agree with you when it comes to, just taking your time and taking it easy, going at your own pace, and it's not necessarily, you competing with your colleagues or your peers, but just being better than you were yesterday. I think that is one of the things that you could definitely do. Of course, this has been a fruitful discussion thus far. I feel like the time just flew by, and there's so much more that can be discussed, and that is the reason why there are, after today, three more shows that you can and should, 3 more youth dialogues that you can and should tune into. Of course, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to close off. I have 2 questions. How are we dealing with no carnival, and final thoughts when we return? Stay with us.
Boom, 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 boom. Hey, St. Lucia. It's me, Hollywood HB, and I'm here to fully endorse this message brought to you by the St. Lucia National Youth Council alongside the St. Lucia Electoral Department about the importance of voting. You see, as long as you are qualified, it is your democratic right to vote. It is your vote that will make a change. It is your vote that will brighten the future for you and for me and the entire country. So go out there and check out the campaign right now. Log on to all the social media platforms. The St. Lucia National Youth Council alongside the St. Lucia Electoral Department. All the information that you desire is right there sitting, waiting for you. Let's go out there and vote, because we, the youth of this nation, have the empowerment to make a difference. Let us vote. Boom.
Thanks for staying with us. This is Youth Dialogues, a part of the Run the Talk series. It is the start of, allow me to correct myself, 4 more dialogues to come. And, just before we go into closing remarks, with your final thoughts, Ajani, I would like you to just, of course, highlight for us again, Ajani is the leader part of the Value the Vote campaign. So he's the one with a lot of the information on these things. Tell us, in terms of the dialogues that are to come, what should we expect?
All right, well, I'm just going to just take a hold of my of this, which is a representation of the logo that the team developed. I really want to say hats off to the team for really investing in the creative genius behind this campaign. This logo has a lot going on, and this was only developed based on the team recognizing that there was need to show the value of the vote that the young St. Lucians have in determining the development of our country. So moving forward, we're hoping that the team, with the members that are leading some of the areas on agriculture and environmental practices, we have another dialogue coming up next week on entrepreneurship and job creation. And the other will be focusing on social inclusion, protection of vulnerable communities. So the team members will be leading those discussions, and we're hoping that that will sort of encourage more young St. Lucians who have interest in these areas to step forward and be very open-minded and directed as it pertains to where can we see our country headed to satisfy these young people.
Nice. And remember that you guys can be a part of these discussions. All you need to do is follow the pages of the National Youth Council as well as the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports. Now, we are in the segment where I should allow you final thoughts, but I was not joking when I asked what we're doing with no carnival. I know that, usually the carnival season is the time where a lot of people, and not just young people, use as a de-stressor. That is when we let loose, we have fun. What What going on? What we doing? What? Let me structure that question properly. What are the alternatives? What can be done? What can young people do to fill that void?
For me, we have to try to use the blueprints that we've seen to work over the past many months. I mean, independence is something that we really normally celebrate grand, and we saw the popularity of the playlist, both Volume 1 and Volume 2, and we saw the excitement. I'm pretty sure you all were as excited as me listening to the playlist. I mean, it was not as the same knowingness that you in there and you having fun, but I mean, it did its job. It did its job in getting people excited. So I definitely think that is something that we could look at for Carnival this year. I don't know how, in terms of the jump up and the bands, are we able to transform that or translate that virtually? But we are creative people. We are a very innovative nation, and I'm pretty sure that somebody will figure something out to get people to jump up in their living rooms. Or
similarly with the excitement that we saw with SJC's virtual sports.
Exactly,
I think
SJC's virtual sports. That created a buzz, and I mean, not just the students of SJC, but all the past students, the alma mater, the past teachers, I mean, even some members of our executive.
I saw Anya. I know you're not mentioning her name. I saw Anya saying Goretti, and she is a Catrice comprehensive girl.
Exactly. So we are very creative people, and I really think that that is something that has been part of our culture. So we definitely need to honor it, but honor it safely while keeping to the protocols.
Very nice. So final thoughts. If there was one thing that you could leave with our viewing audience, young people in St. Lucia, and I want to give each of you an opportunity to say that succinctly, because of course we are on the clock, one thing and why that you would like to leave with young people. Let's start with you, Mary.
I believe that, I'd want to tell young people we have a very dedicated team of workers at the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, led by our PS Caroline Eugene. We are very committed to see that young people and youth work takes its, that youth work becomes a profession in St. Lucia. Our vision is that it becomes recognized by the public service as a profession, so you can apply into the public service as a youth worker, because it has its discipline, it has theory, it has practical, it's an academic discipline, and so we're hoping that not too long or not close enough that it can be recognized as a profession in our public service. And also we are really committed to see young people participate in community, because we believe that maintaining social order is important for our country to thrive. Increasing crime and violence is threatening that on a huge level, and in order to counteract, we need to begin to engage young people as early as possible so that they can be part of the process of transforming community, so that it can be one where peace and prosperity, and that young people could live out their purpose. So this is what we're committed to doing, and we want to send the invitation to join us and help us and collaborate with us. Reach out. We want to do this as a nation so that our young people get the full benefit and the blessings that would come to our nation when our young people are purposefully engaged.
Yeah. Nice. Jani, if there was one thing that you could leave with our viewing audience, our listening audience, what would it be and why?
Continue to serve, continue to find opportunities to add value and pour into other individuals. Recognize that as an individual there is a broader society that needs your assistance and your contribution. Beyond that, I think looking at the challenges that young people face, I'll go back to the point of encouraging youth to sort of like take it easy, find a way to build your life around something that keeps you going on a morning. I know that there are several challenges, whether it be youth who are unemployed, whether it be youth who are dealing with domestic issues. But if we're able to lighten up life within, finding very important things that we could do on a daily basis, such as exercising, such as, you know, looking at videos that get you excited and inspired, having a circle of friends. John Maxwell speaks a lot to the circle, the 5 people around you who can pour into you as an individual. So it's important for young people to develop an inner circle that can add value to them and begin to direct them into a space that will give them greater comfort as they move along life's journey. So for the youth who's at this time very challenged and going through a lot of those issues surrounding their mental and emotional well-being, I think it's important that we try to support each other and in that process you're able to feel a bit better and comfortable inside.
Nice. Nice.
I think I first of all want to wish every single young person in St. Lucia a happy Youth Month. And I just want to say how incredibly proud I am of the resilience that young people have shown over the past year and so many months. COVID threw so many curveballs at us that we never saw coming. But to see young people develop that sense of resilience and stepping up to the challenge, where there was a need for certain services and certain resources and certain expertise, young people basically began to innovate in a way that we've not seen before. So I really want to say how proud I am of all the young people of St. Lucia. And I mean, this month is a month where we really celebrate you. We celebrate your accomplishments, we celebrate your achievements. Every single young person has a part to play. Like the Value in the Vote campaign says, every single vote matters, every single voice matters. And we really want to use this month to bring it out and to encourage everybody to become involved, to encourage you to become part of the process. Reach out to the NYC, reach out to the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports. We are not in this for ourselves, we're in it because we're trying to make a difference and we want to bring you on and to develop as holistically as possible and reach as many people as possible. So happy Youth Month to every single young person in St. Lucia, and please tune in to the next dialogues because I can assure you that they would be just as exciting as I hope that this one was.
Very nice. So that was, of course, our wrap-up for the very first Youth Dialogue, a part of the Run the Talk series, a part of Value the Vote campaign, and rightfully, as Naya said, this is one that you can and should be involved in, not only on a national level. Yes, you should. Your vote matters when it comes to the national level, but more so, or just as equally so, on the youth level as well, because I think one of the things that we hear a lot is, you know, I'm not involved within the youth arena, but the first step is in ensuring that, you know, you are present to be involved. So cast your vote in order to choose your representation. Of course, those of you watching on NTN, we are bringing you the rest of the series as well as on Blazing 99.3. And for more information on Youth Month activities, on what's happening with the National Youth Council within the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, utilize those social media platforms. Just for us, let us know, what are the social media platforms of the National Youth Council as well as the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports for anybody who is watching or listening who may have questions, queries, or just comments?
Well, for the NYC, we're social on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at NYC St. Lucia. So feel free to follow, share, like, and get involved.
Nice. What about the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports?
Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, St. Lucia. I think we're on Facebook and Instagram as well. Yeah.
Nice. So that sums it up for us today. Let me thank you guys once again for joining us. This was the very first talk, a part of the Run the Talk series. Our discussion today surrounded the status of youth development in St. Lucia. Of course, just to remind you, we had Nias Alfred here with us, President of the National Youth Council. We had the second Vice, Jani Lebon, and the Director of Youth Development within the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports. I'm your moderator, Humadi Mark, wishing you a very good evening.
Good day, everyone. That's your boy, Boss Cattle here, representing for St. Lucia National Youth Council and the Electoral Department. Basically, to after the campaign,
where they're trying to boost the turnout of the youth at the next general election. As we all know, election is around the corner, so why wait? Now is the time to educate and raise awareness of the do's and the don'ts, and what you have to do, and how our vote go make a difference. Don't stay home and say, guys, I vote in all them people is same thing. Nah, trust me. The youth vote is the one that'll make the difference. They're not politically fitted, they'll not tell you SLP or UWP, none of that. You make your choice, but do the right choice and do it the right way. You can follow the pages on Instagram. All the information is there, upcoming activities, or whatever questions or queries you have, you can DM them and they'll get back to you. So don't forget, St. Lucia National Youth Council, they're here for us to help us vote the right way. Boss Cartel endorse.